Susan Allan is the founder of the Marriage Forum Incorporated. It's a nonprofit company devoted to generating world peace. She's America's leading marriage and divorce coach. She is the creator of the Heartspace system and a certified mediator. She's been seen on Fox News and on hundreds of other television and radio programs, demonstrating the results that you can create when you're able to transform the way you listen, speak, think, and act. And she offers a complimentary private telephone session so that everyone can experience Heartspace healing. And I'm very proud and very happy to have Susan Allan here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, honey.
I am so happy to be here. This is just so thrilling to be able to do a workshop with Brandy and to know that every one of you and everyone who's watching is going to leave here with a deep understanding of what's possible. So as we're talking, keep in mind that I'm going to offer to do a role play with anybody who has a problem. I don't care how big it is. I don't care how hopeless it looks. You just have to be willing to be on camera because you'll be sitting there. And literally in 15 minutes, usually, people can see that when I play you with these tools and skills, and you play this person in your life who's driving you crazy, that it is not only possible, it is highly probable that we can turn this situation around. And you know, in this room there are about 6 or 7 of you who know me already and who have had this experience. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are not here, who have had horrendous situations with their spouses, with their parents, with their siblings, with their children, with their bosses, with their neighbors. I think that's pretty much it. Co-workers. I mean, horrendous things. The most challenging, of course, is when it happens to our children. And I've had 2 remarkable situations with young children, a 7-year-old client and a 10-year-old client, who turned around devastating experiences they were having. The 10-year-old did it in 37 minutes. He never needed to speak to me again. We checked in. He said, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. The 7-year-old, it took her about 30 minutes. Then she called me and left me a message that said, Susan, this really worked. And I checked in with her. I thought, you know, this is great for me. I'm thrilled, but this is possible. 30 minutes. And of course, another child who was 11 and had a conversation, very brief, and the situation turned around. Now, that doesn't mean that it had to turn around that quickly. There's no time requirement. There are clients I do work with for some long period of time if it's very complicated. But the speed with which you can master this, if you also do brain training, can be like this. Because if you keep having the same neural pathways that got you into this mess, you know, Einstein said the brain that created the problem can't solve it. So that's why I say, yeah, so with Brandy and Ian, you don't have the brain that created the problem. If I had that, you know, brain erased in me, transformed in me, redeveloped in me without all the $1 million I spent on personal transformation since 1975, it would have been fantastic and easy. I would have that $1 million back. That's right. What I say to my clients is, I spent the $1 million on this, learning how to think, listen, speak, and act in a different way, so you guys don't have to. So that's another part of it. So tonight, I want to teach you the basics. Anyone who speaks to me for a private 1-hour consultation, it's not to do anything except teach you some skills. Well, that's why you're here. So the very first thing you have to understand is that each one of us, according to Herrmann brain dominance, which is used by 95% of the Fortune 500 companies, each one of us is more like one of these 4 brain quadrants. Most like 1, or most like 2, and once in a while, most like 3. only 6% of the population is equidominant, which is to say, not me, not even branding, right? So most people aren't, but that's all right. As long as you know the part of your brain that is least activated, you can really manually move yourself around. Can everybody see what this says? Or would you like me to read it to anybody? Can you see it? Sure. The upper left brain, and listen to see what sounds like you, okay? If it sounds like you want to just make a note. I'm giving you handouts at the end of the evening. And for anybody watching at home, just send me an email. I'm delighted to send you the email info. The upper left brain is the rational self. Logical analysis of data, dollars, and numbers. Probably nobody here is a banker. Probably nobody here is strictly involved in finance, but maybe you are. If you were, this would be your way of thinking, just as it's Donald Trump's and a lot of the masters of the universe. And this is the way their brain works. This is the only way they see the world. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but that's the way they see the world. And if you want to have a conversation with someone like that, like a traffic cop, it's all about data, numbers, how fast were you going, what was the speed limit, let me see your license and registration. There's no, oh, but officer, I just wasn't thinking, it's such a beautiful day, and I do, not, forget it. It's officer, I was going 75 miles an hour, it was a 68-mile limit, here's my license and registration. Done. The lower left brain, very orderly, very organized, very interested in safety, very interested in step-by-step action. Doug, who is doing the cameras and sound work tonight, he and I got here an hour earlier than we said we would, which was even earlier than we needed to be. So you know that Doug and I are organized, orderly, sequential people, and again, not right or wrong, but helpful if you need to be here to make sure something happens. Yeah, you want people like that around. Lower right brain. A lot of people in Los Angeles are acting, or they're in some kind of entertainment field. They're all about connecting. Anybody who's in front of an audience, like Brandy and I, obviously very connecting. All about feelings, our own and others, hopefully, right? But I often train people to stop only focusing on their own feelings and start to weigh in on what everyone else might be feeling. And what are the emotions? And in a moment, I'll tell you where the challenges are with each of these quadrants. And finally, again, a very LA kind of thing, peace, freedom, and autonomy. Just give me peace, give me freedom, don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to do it, just all about freedom. Now, each of these quadrants has a real problem under stress if you haven't mastered it. And you want to know in advance what it is because you don't want to find yourself constantly being triggered and being in trouble. Hi. The upper left brain, that logical, analytical, data, cop brain, the real estate magnate brain, that kind of brain, the investment banker brain, that brain will criticize to clarify the facts. And we've all probably had the experience where the traffic officer says to you, no ma'am, you were going 86 miles an hour, and it was a 75, blah, 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 and blah, 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 and I'm sorry, don't exit the car. Right? Don't exit, so they get triggered, they're going to criticize to try to clarify. That's what that brain does. Can't take it personally, or you'll end up in a fight or worse. So if somebody's coming at you with data in a very harsh tone of voice, I'll teach you in a few minutes what to do, but arguing, well, you knew arguing didn't work. You tried, right? We all tried. If it worked, we'd still be doing it. The lower left brain. That's the part of the brain that desperately needs safety. That's why, I left where I was like 17 hours early to make sure that I didn't get stuck in traffic. That part of the brain needs safety, so that part of the brain will explain and defend. But officer, I was only trying to get to my father's funeral. So, explaining, forget it. It doesn't work any better than criticizing to clarify. The lower right brain will get so flooded with emotion, crying, screaming, yelling, throwing dishes, and ultimately that's the stand-up comedian's brain. That's the sarcasm. That's the contempt to relieve feelings. You know, that's Seinfeld doing his thing. You know, that's Jackie Mason. Clever, but really everything they say, when you think about it, it's hilarious, but everything they say is contemptuous. And it's because they had this idea, not obviously the day they stood up and made, you know, jokes about it, but they were triggered by something in their own lives. They made a note that they were triggered, and so the contempt to relieve their feelings was turned successfully into, you know, $1-million careers. But at home with your wife or your husband, don't do it. It doesn't work. And that's why people say the comedians are not fun to live with. They say they're not happy people. Sure, they're so flooded with emotions that they're constantly being triggered to contempt to relieve their feelings, and heaven forbid you're the person at home, that's what you're going to get. You know, you're going to be the brunt of their jokes. And as we know, because we listen, a lot of them make fun of their spouse on TV. Or, you know, I remember Phyllis Diller used to talk about, we thought it was her husband, Fang or something, but there wasn't, she'd been divorced from him for like 20 years. Well, of course she had been. Who wants to stick around with that? That kind of, you know, commentary. Finally, the upper right brain. Very challenging to marry an upper right brain person or be in a committed relationship with one, because under stress they will withdraw or stonewall to try to get peace. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way you live your life like a machine. You're an upper left brain person and you're triggered and you criticize to clarify. I'm saying no, you don't do that, but that's what you're going to want to do. And the lower left brain person is going to want to explain and defend. And I once said to a woman who just kept talking when her husband, who was separated, came to visit. He came once a week. He was such a nice guy. Came to visit her once a week. He was worried about her. And once a week he said, if she would only just shut up. She talks from the minute I walk in the door. I come because she's so lonely. And I said, have you asked her if she could just be happy to have you there? And if you could have a good time, you might not get a divorce? She was this lower right, communicate, feelings. So I said, okay, motivate her to call me. I'll give her a free hour. Let's see what I can do. So finally I said to her, your husband has already moved out. Your situation financially is not good, because I'm a certified mediator. I'm not just a life coach. I'm also a marriage coach, and I'm considered to be one of the leading divorce coaches too. So I know the whole thing. I said, he's already moved out. He comes back once a week, giving you a chance to reconcile. A chance. He asks you for one thing. He's not asking you for the greatest sex in the world once a week. He's not asking you to lose the 30 pounds that you gained in the last 10 years. He's not asking you to go to work you haven't worked in all this time. He's asking for some silence, some peace. He needs some peace. And finally, in desperation, I said to her, have you considered masking tape? What do you want? But for her, she was unable to do anything but just the automatic response. Couldn't do it, and ultimately, didn't work out for them, obviously. The upper right brain person, that guy, that husband, he would just leave. If he couldn't get his needs met by asking, he would just leave to try to get his needs for peace met in the only way he knew. Living in another apartment, very sad. So what do we do when we identify that we may be some of these, or our partner, or our parents, or our children, or business partners, coworkers, bosses, anybody? We have a pretty good idea where they're coming from. Now the way to communicate in a peaceful, supportive, cooperative way, rather than coercing people and rather than capitulating, right? We've all spent our lives either fighting or flighting, right? And it's it's very exhausting. You can't do it. It doesn't work. There's no benefit to fighting with anybody over anything. And for those of us who are here who've been on this earth for a good amount of time, if we want to continue to be, this is the only solution to real health is inner peace. I'm healthier now than I've ever been in my life. And I've done a million things to get there, believe me. And I will say that one of the crucial things is to really be peaceful. So I should move this so you guys can see. And I want to teach you these two first, then I'll do a brief overview, and then if somebody would volunteer to do a role play with me, would be great. Otherwise, you're elected.
No problem.
But I presume there's somebody who would really like to see how you can use these tools and skills and really transform a situation. You know, it's not helpful to watch someone who's not you doing it compared to experience it in your own situation. That makes all the difference. Because if you watch me do it with you and we're talking about your child or your brother or your boss, then you have the language, you have the vocabulary, and you can then take it home and actually do it. So the 6-part conversation that I developed is my experience and the experience of so many others. It's a breakthrough in having inner peace quickly. You have to first, of course, notice when you're triggered. If you don't notice when you're triggered, then you're going to do one of these behaviors and you're going to regret it. The first thing is notice when you're frightened, angry, or sad, and don't do anything. Do not speak. Do not write an email. Do not text. Do not go out of your home, literally. Spend the 5 minutes it takes so you don't get into trouble and trash a situation that's already bad, right? You don't want to make things worse. You want to make them better. So when you're feeling frightened, angry, or sad, it's always because you have a need that's not being met. And I don't mean that I have a need that she's not meeting. I mean I have a need that I'm not meeting. And maybe I'm in a relationship with somebody and it may look as if one of you isn't meeting my needs. But the truth is that I'm not meeting my need. No matter what is going on in my life, it's because I'm either meeting my needs because I have a lot of tools and skills and the right brain, or I'm not meeting my needs because I don't. And if I transform my brain, which I am doing and have done, then I will be more able to use this quickly and effectively. It's that simple. But I still have to do it. So if I'm frightened because my need for peace isn't met, if I'm irritated because my need for support isn't met, if I'm concerned because my need for information isn't met, any one of the needs we have as humans, we have about 10 or 15 needs. If this is where you fit, you've got a need for financial security, you've got a need for respect from others, you have a need for self-respect, but this kind of a self-respect thing, you know, not a loving self-respect one. You have a need for real results in business, results. It's all about getting it done in a way that the world turns on what you've accomplished. It's the Donald Trump brain, you know, a name that everybody's familiar with. So it's the Donald Trump brain, you know. That's a guy who's been bankrupt twice, and it didn't stop him. It couldn't stop him because his brain is wired in such a way that if he's not doing something big, he can't literally, you know, function. So he's got to figure out a way to do something that is in his mind big, financially, in terms of business and success. So those needs of his, if they're not met, they've got to be met. For this person, you've got to have safety, you've got to have order, and you've got to have support. You could have the most fabulous partner in the world, and I have clients who they describe their partners, they sound fantastic, or I've met them, but the big complaint can be, I mean, if you have, let's say, and I don't mean it in terms of the traditional husband and wife, but let's say a partner is over here and is making millions of dollars, right? And the other partner complains because, am I supposed to be the only parent taking the children to play soccer? Because my need for support isn't met. Now, to those of us who aren't right there, we'd say, yeah, your partner's making, you know, $2-3 million a year, and it would make sense, since you decide that's not something you want to do, it would make sense that you could be excited about picking up the children from a soccer game and taking them. But no, if this person's need is for support, and their need for support isn't met, it is a problem. That person will be angry because her need for support isn't met. And then a deep yogic breath. She may be deeply sad, deeply, deeply sad, that her need for order isn't met because she tries to get the family to sit down for dinner, let's say at 6:30, and the other partner, because time for the children and family time, and the other partner is busy meeting with President Obama or something, you know? And she's deeply angry and very frustrated because her need for cooperation and order and consistency and timeliness isn't met, right? Or another typical one is a woman or a man marries somebody who is not in this quadrant and never was, and wasn't on the first date or the second date or the 10th date, and had many, many other partners coming and going, you know, like a revolving door, and then suddenly is outraged that my partner doesn't meet my needs for monogamy, because monogamy goes there, incidentally. Everybody doesn't have a primary desire, longing to be monogamous. So if that's number one for you, you have to find a person who has a lot of this thinking. Just as if money, big money, is really important for you, you've got to marry somebody or be in a partnership with somebody for whom that's a big part of their brain. Now we get to the love, romance, sex, passion. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I thought everybody had a brain like this, and that some of them just weren't really nice to me. And that if I were different, they would be nice to me and loving and affectionate and romantic, because they were going to be that way with other people, since they weren't that way with me. So I was married twice. I had 14 total marriage proposals, and I literally went through scads and that's right, you know, lots and lots of people, until I finally learned what I had misunderstood is that it wasn't about people not wanting to be with me or not treating me well or me taking it personally. It's that they had completely different needs. I mean, totally different needs, and I didn't have the ears for it. I couldn't hear it, I couldn't see it, and when I had this understanding, when I became trained in Herrmann brain dominance, everything shifted. So if I want somebody to like me for whatever reason, like me professionally, like me as a friend, like me anyway, all I have to do, and all you have to do, is identify what are their key needs. Are they mostly about money and power and respect? Are they mostly about order and consistency and timeliness and safety? Are they all about romance and passion and affection and love and, you know, hearts and flowers and all that? Or, in fact, and beware over here, are they mostly about peace and freedom and autonomy? You can motivate anybody to be in some quality of a relationship with you if you understand this. That's why my reconciliation results are 100%. And I have, you know, so many testimonials. You think that's impossible. You would imagine I'm lying. Of course, it doesn't even seem realistic. Therapists, reconciliation 25 to 35%, and you have to drag your partner into the office and basically nail yourselves to a chair and hope that somehow miraculously you're going to fall into the 25-35%. The reason that the Heartspace system works is if your relationship isn't working out, it's because your needs aren't getting met, period. And if his or her relationship isn't working out, you've seen places where one partner is having a great relationship and is shocked when you announce that you're leaving. You know, this happened to someone very, very dear to me. Her husband said, "I'm leaving." They had 2 small children. She said, "I didn't know you had a business trip coming up." He said, "No, I'm leaving." She said, I don't understand. he said, I'm leaving. It's not working. And thank God she had the presence of mind to say, first you have to say goodbye to the children. But he was living right there. He wanted to have his freedom. He wanted to be with a different woman. He ultimately was married, I think, 4 times, you know. And so he didn't have any of this. He just didn't have it, not good or bad. I mean, you have to be really clear here. There is no good or bad. As tempting it is, it might be good for you or bad for you. But we have to begin to have this understanding if we want peace. We have to begin to be able to really do it. So I think I should ask for someone to do a role play now so we don't run out of time, right? So who has a situation that they really are not enjoying, don't want it for another minute? And this is really painless because I will play your role using the 6-part conversation, really showing. I did a workshop here a couple of months ago, and a guy had a horrible situation with his mother and inheritance. And he thought he would never, ever be able to speak to his mother again. He hadn't spoken to her in a long time. And in 10 or 15 minutes, we turned the situation around. And he then, as Brandy said, he called her. He did exactly what I modeled. And he and his mom were talking. And so, of course, the first step to turning around an inheritance problem is talking to a parent, right? Not much of a chance, you know, that you're going to do it peacefully and effectively otherwise. So I'm hopeful that somebody is going to volunteer. Please, fantastic. If you would have a seat right here, you might want to bring your water, just because we'll be here for 15 minutes. I want to get thirsty. Now, Doug, tell me if we have to move so you can see both of us. Ah, and the hand mic. That's what I need from you. I need the hand mic. Thank you, Patty. I took my producing cap off. Better not do that again. Thank you. Great. Now, you don't have to say anything except briefly tell us the situation that you're dealing with and the relationship that this person has to you, so I get an idea how to play you. So my job is to be you. Your job is to be this person, but you've got to give me enough information so I can be you in a fairly realistic way. So you don't have to tell me everything, but you have to tell me enough to communicate with this other person.
Well, let me ask you this. This is being shown to the public, so technically this person could find it.
I doubt it. I doubt it, because this is a small listing.
All right, we'll use this example, but I do actually like the person that I'm going to describe to you. So
okay.
I don't want them to take offense if they do.
And mark his words.
I guess recently, the most recent story I can think of has to do with my boss. And it happened actually earlier in the week where, you know, we're all under a lot of pressure. Times have been tough for everyone. You know, we work in a business that's purely based on commission, so we don't have a steady income or paycheck. And we had our weekly staff meeting, and basically at the end of the staff meeting, or maybe about an hour or two after the staff meeting, he asked me to come into his office. We were talking about a couple of the deals that we were working on, and out of nowhere, basically just came out very aggressive and told me that he was going to dock me for not providing some information during the staff meeting. So this really kind of caught me off guard.
Did he tell you how much he was going to dock you and what the information was?
$500.
Okay, he was going to dock you $500, and the information was?
Just, you know, I work in the real estate business, so this is typically when we have our staff meetings, we discuss new listings of whether, you know, typically of other companies. And this particular staff meeting, I didn't prepare any new listings. Even though I knew of some, I didn't actually formally input them into our system. So, you know, that really kind of, I think, made him, you know, upset. And, you know, we just, you know, and it triggered me because I'm under a lot of pressure with stuff that we're working on together, things that I'm doing, and, you know, I kind of gave it back to him.
Okay, so if at any point I need more information,
Sure.
all you have to do is say, and out of the role play, Susan, I just need to tell you, because that,
Okay.
you know, that happens. I don't want to spend 6 hours getting to know this other man, you know, that well. But if there's something I need, then you can just stop at any moment.
Okay.
Okay? So the very first thing I have to do, and you either can tell me your real first name or give me another first name, just so I have something to use.
I'll give you my alias, which is Julian Jackson.
Very good. Julian, excellent. So the first thing that Julian has to do before he would try to create any kind of resolution in any kind of a stressful situation is he has to come to peace. So first I'm going to model that. And this is self-empathy, and this is all silent. And what shall we call your boss? What would his alias be?
We'll call him...
Bob? Can we call him Bob?
That's too close to the real
Okay.
name. We'll call him, how about...
John.
John.
Okay, good.
Good name.
Good, John.
It's my grandfather's name.
Okay. Showing how fond you are of this person. Okay, good, perfect. So if I'm Julian, I feel really shocked that John spoke to me this way. I mean, really shocked that my need for respect wasn't met. And I feel really concerned that my need for financial security isn't going to be met. And I feel angry that my need for fairness is absolutely not being met. And I feel concerned that my need for safety in my job may not be met, depending on how I communicate with John. And ultimately, because I, Julian, have been practicing this for many months, I know that I've got the skills, I know how to create a cooperative solution, and I'm ready. And if this were really Julian doing this, he would have needed to practice before he just goes in. But now, let us imagine, for our purposes tonight, that I go in and the meeting's over, and I say, John, I wonder, do you have about 5 minutes? There's something I wanted to discuss with you.
What do
And
you
he's
want?
going to say yes.
Sure, sure.
Just otherwise we don't have a demo.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we already see that John is maybe not as cooperative as we'd like. Because, you know, if somebody says, would you be willing to talk to me for 5 minutes, you would hope that somebody would say, sure. But, okay. Thanks. Do you want to do it here, or should we go into your office?
Come in.
Okay, great. Thanks. You know, now we go right to empathy for the other person. This is all about John. I imagine that in the meeting this morning, when I didn't have any new listings, you were probably very annoyed that I hadn't supported the company by bringing in the new listings and also already listing them on the computer. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I know it's very important that before we have the sales meetings, it's very, very important that we do all of our new listings and get them up on the computer. That's something that you really do want. Is that correct?
It's critical.
Yeah, yeah.
I want us to be team players here.
Yes. And I can imagine that you felt very annoyed that even though I told you in the meeting that I have...
Annoyed can't even describe how I'm feeling right now.
So you're really furious.
Furious.
Oh, okay. So for you, by my not being able to get them listed on the computer in time for the sales meeting, it just looked to you that there was no way you were getting the cooperation you need, and there was no way that you were having me be the team player you know I've always been. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I wonder, John, is there anything else?
Well, to teach you a lesson, I'm going to dock you $500 for not doing this.
So now let's go out of the role play because I need a little more information. So you've been at the company for how long? About?
2 years.
Okay. And have you ever done this before?
But Yes and no, but.
So maybe once or twice in 2 years, you didn't get them listed on the computer in time for the sales meeting?
Yes.
In time to the meeting,
Yeah.
okay. So once or twice?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he ever say to you, the next time you do this, I'm docking you $500?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, because then you wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
So when we, when we're giving empathy to people, it's so obvious. You're not shocked. You may be furious, but you're not going to be shocked because they told you, right? Okay. So back into the role play. I can imagine that it is, as you said, essential that we operate as a team, and that the way you can see, one of the big things you look for a team player, is that we've got new listings and we share the new listings with the team, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that for you, the preferred amount of time that we do this is by the time the sales meeting begins. It's very important to you that we get these listed on the web. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that I've been here for 2 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I presume that until this morning, you were pleased with my performance and that you see me as a team player. Is that correct, John?
Yes, but that still has nothing to do with why I'm upset. Because I feel like I've brought this up in other meetings, and I feel as if you're completely disregarding what I've said in the past.
So now, this is important. If you didn't have the courage and the skills to give your boss empathy, you would never know all of what I call taking the temperature of a relationship. Or any example of a relationship that is potentially on the rocks or is on the rocks. There's all that stuff that wasn't cleared up in the past. So if you had the skills you're seeing today, 6 months ago, 4 months ago, a year and a half ago, you would be in a different place today. Now, that I guarantee, and
Okay.
you don't have to trust me with that. But that's the way it works. You basically unstack the relationship of all the frustrations and anger and disappointment, all that. So we're listening to him now. How much is going to go away right now, we don't know. But the truth is that by listening to him now, giving empathy for him now, showing him that we are committed to him and to his team now, completely shifts the relationship. And we're looking for the long-term relationship because Julian didn't say he was looking for a way to get out of a job. He likes the boss. They get along well. Most of the time, he just had this shocking situation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's all about creating the relationship and making the best deal you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, John, I remember that you did discuss this with me maybe once or twice in the last 2 years. Of course, I know that. And I'm wondering if there's anything else you want me to know, or if you'd be willing to hear my thoughts about it.
Well, I just want you to pay more attention and to, when I ask you to do something, you should, do them and find the time to do these things because these are critical to our business.
Right. Now, out of the role play, do you have a good excuse for not having done it before the sales meeting began? The staff meeting?
Well, yes, because I was very busy with other things.
Like, do you have any excuse that he would find useful?
Well, busy working on projects that he and I are working on together.
Can you
And also, and one of the other things too, and that I actually brought up when I spoke to him, is that some of these listings are sensitive. So he doesn't necessarily like the whole world to know about them.
So they're pocket listings, we would call them, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
So the reason I asked, I didn't ask in the beginning because it's only important now that we're getting to part 3, self-expression, where Julian is now going to speak about his feelings and needs, okay? And of course, once you get really good at this, you get skilled at this, you can do all this, quickly and second nature. So, John, there were a couple of things that I was doing that morning for the work you and I do together. And I wonder if I could speak about it for a few minutes. Would that be okay?
I don't have time right now. I want you to just make sure that you for the next meeting next week that you start doing the work.
Okay. I'm just wondering, though, would you be willing to reconsider the docking? Because that's very important to me. I was so busy this morning doing so-and-so and such that
Well, I
is
feel
the
like
work for
I've given you fair warning, and you know, this is, you know, the third time I feel, you know, that you've come unprepared.
Okay, then I really hope that you'd be willing to talk about the listings they have, because they're pocket listings. They're not for public consumption. So I couldn't
Well, I
list
want
those.
everyone in this office to know about them because we work as a team.
Right, I understand that. Now, how would you like me to handle this? Because my understanding was, when I have a sensitive listing, or anyone in the office has a sensitive listing, then we may talk about it briefly, but we don't share it, because it's a pocket
Well,
listing.
I want that to change then, because I don't want there to be any pocket listings.
So you want to implement a new policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well, it's not new.
Okay.
This is the policy.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that. Notice I'm not in any way implying that he's a liar, that he's an idiot, that he didn't tell me, that it's his fault, right? No matter what you may be triggered to think, whether you're down here contempt to relieve your feelings, if you're, you know, more of a touchy-feely person down here, or if you're a dollars and numbers, you know, that person's just a liar. He's just a liar. So none of that's going to help you. So it's just about maintaining the connection. So now you go back to empathy for John, because he got triggered again. You know, when you say that, I can imagine that you feel very, very annoyed that even though you've discussed this about pocket listings, that at least I wasn't clear that that was a new policy. And so I appreciate your telling me now that there is a new policy, and of course, now that I understand that, I have a different way of operating. So now there's a different MO in the office. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
Okay. So then, do I understand that since this is a new policy, then
Well, it's
you
not
can-
so new. But obviously, you weren't paying attention then. I'm kidding, but
No, yeah, but they say that. So, you know, and he doesn't want to lose you because you're working on projects, so remember
yeah,
that.
and
He doesn't want to lose you.
generally we like each other.
Yeah,
I
of
think we
course.
get along very well.
He doesn't
It's
want to
just-
lose you.
I think it was just a sensitive time in the day.
But you can't let it go and be docked $500.
Right.
You can't fight. You have to stick with it. You have to stick with it if you're going to keep your job, because even if he doesn't fire you and you hate his guts, it's over.
Oh yeah, and that's
So
miserable.
you have to come up with a peaceful solution that works for everybody. So back into the role play. So, John, I also am wondering, you know, I was working on these projects, the such and such project that you and I are doing together, and the so-and-so project that you and I were doing together. And so my understanding was that those had priority to preparing for the staff meeting, because those are very time sensitive. So I'm wondering if this morning you would clarify that for me, so that I don't trigger you in the future.
Well, I just want you to manage your time better, and so that the next, when we have our staff meetings, you're more prepared.
Okay, I absolutely guarantee that I'm doing that. And can we say, are we clear to avoiding this punitive situation?
Yes, we're crystal clear. Crystal clear.
So there's no punishment now? You're
No
willing
punishment, but don't let it happen again.
I promise. And then you take your hand out and you shake his hand. You got to deal with this guy
Deal.
right now.
Yeah.
This deal, and like nothing is going to, you know, okay, 100%.
We move
Yeah,
on.
100%. No back door. You know, once you motivate somebody, that's it. Okay. So what did you experience playing John's role? What was that like?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's difficult to really know how someone thinks or interprets a situation. But, I mean, I guess, you know, I could see sort of why he was angry, or why, you know, the reasoning as to why he was upset. He's, you know, has a lot of pressure. He's the head of the office. He's managing a lot of people. He has a certain level of expectations from, you know, from each one of us. You know, I think it's just a matter of controlling your emotions and not allowing them to take over, and just really kind of looking at a situation with as clear a vision as you can have.
Now, what's interesting about this, here's what my experience was playing you. So I work with a lot of realtors, you know, all over the country, but a lot in LA.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, this guy can't afford to lose me. If I do this in a peaceful, professional, and cooperative way, it isn't worth $500 to him to lose me. He'd be crazy to lose me, because I know what's going on, as everybody sitting in this room knows what's going on in Los Angeles. If you've got somebody who's a personable, hardworking, successful realtor in Los Angeles in the year 2010, he's your best friend. You are not messing this up. So I didn't allow myself to get too nervous, and I wasn't pushing. There was no reason, because as soon as I entered your body psychically, it occurred to me, hey, all I have to do is show him a team player.
Right.
Because all this guy wants is he wants a team, and of course he wants a team because it's about money, it's about selling real estate. So he's a very left-brain guy. If he's successful in real estate today, he has to be.
He's very left-brain.
Has to be. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was such a pleasure.
And please don't hold this against me. So.
Right, he's your best possible team member.
Thank you. Should I leave this here?
Yes. Fantastic. Okay, so somebody must have a question after that. It looks simple. It's not that simple, but you can learn it. If I could learn it, you could learn it. So who has a question about either how to handle your own situation, or why that worked, or how that worked? What's very interesting in role plays is, even though the person who's teaching the Heartspace system doesn't know John, certainly doesn't know Julian, very accurate things come about in the role play. Very accurate. Things that you can then quickly make notes, and I hope you do, because you've got a notebook, and make notes, and just remember, it's about John wants somebody to be on the team. John wants to know he can count on you for support. John wants you to be sure that his needs for the financial well-being of the company are as important to you as they are to him, based on any realtor who's successful, and based on 2010 Los Angeles. That's just common sense. Anybody, didn't have to be me, anybody would know that. And even when Julian was describing, what was the guy interested in? Consistency, support, timeliness, information. So timeliness and information, so before the staff meeting and all the listings, that goes up there. And getting it done before the meeting starts. So getting all the listings done, and then you have the meeting. So 1-2, not 2-1. And then we saw the way he acted when he was playing his boss. It was very clear. Yes, please.
You talked about the example with the lady that order was very important to her, and the husband that wanted peace, okay? And somehow or other they were not communicating. Now, he could have said something to her, but anytime you open your mouth and say something, you can cause problems if you don't say the right thing. He was thinking it, but he didn't say it. And she didn't even know where he was coming from. And so the question is, when do you talk and when do you keep still?
Could I show you? Would you be willing?
Sure.
Oh, good. Thank you. And we just have a few minutes now, but this is too tempting.
Hi.
So let's see.
You want an example?
Yeah, and you're going to be that person who's not the one. I'm going to be the one who demonstrates how to talk about it, whatever it is that you're wanting, that you, your real self, wants me to demonstrate. But you're going to be this other person. So you can be the difficult person in any version you want, and I am going to be this person wanting peace, right? That's what you want me to demonstrate? That I want peace,
yes.
and I'm going to motivate you to be more peaceful around me. Is that correct?
Well, peaceful or different actions and so on and so
Good.
forth?
So, you know, this is 5 minutes, right? So I'm not expected to, you know exactly who the demonstration is about, but just give me something to work with.
I'll
Just
set
be
the stage.
difficult.
I'll set the stage, okay?
Yes.
Not being difficult.
Okay.
But when you have an office environment,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when you've got a goal, and you're pushing in this economy in order to be able to take and make things work,
Yes.
and when you feel the other person is part of the team and
Mm-hmm.
working with you, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get signs that that's not happening,
Mm-hmm.
not what they say, but what they do. Example one, talking on the phone for half an hour with her family. And so on and so
Perfect.
forth.
Let's do that one.
Example two,
Okay.
when I'm not looking, getting on the computer and playing solitaire. You know.
Yeah, I was going to say that's perfect.
So you've got two
games,
examples.
but
You know
they're
what
the
it does
same
to me? You
person.
know what it does to me? It says I don't care.
It gives you adjective, probably.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care.
Yes.
And I'm paying a big salary, and I'm saying,
Yes.
well, what do I need this for? You know, I need to
Perfect.
retire.
Perfect. So is this a woman or a man who does this?
What do you guess?
I'm guessing it's a woman, but it could
You're
be
right.
a man. Okay. But it could be. What it is it's a connecting person. Just so you know, the person who does this is a connecting person. The person who's texting all the time, the person who's on the phone all the time, the person who's checking with family all the time, the person who has to be doing something, connecting to somebody, that person.
Okay.
So I'm going to be very connecting with you because that is the language that you speak. And you're a woman, and let's say your name is Barbara. Doesn't matter, right?
Okay.
As long as it's not a real Barbara. And I am
So
your boss.
I've got to really make the shift.
Get yourself into Barbara,
Okay.
right?
So I've got to make the shift. It's not easy. Okay, but I'll try.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm the boss. I'm this gentleman now. And I'm calming myself down because I'm going to go talk to Barbara. So I am here in self-empathy, which is silent. I'm angry that my need for consideration's not met. I'm furious that my need for an appropriate use of the time and money is not met. I am enraged when I think of all the money I've given this woman for all these years, and that this is how she spends her time when there are customers who she could be working with. I feel so furious. I really need cooperation. It's not being met. I need consideration. It's not being met. I need respect. It's not being met. And I also need some peace. I don't want to be doing this all the time in my head. I've been practicing this for years, so I'm calm now. I know it's me and my needs. It isn't even about Barbara. It's about motivating Barbara or replacing Barbara. Is Barbara your sister-in-law, daughter?
Almost like family, but not quite.
But not. I mean, it's a difference. You know, this may be someone you have forever. That's different. She's been with you for a long time, and
Yes.
you know, this is about turning it around. This was not about showing Julian how to get another job. This is not about showing John how to get another employee. It's about creating cooperation, but
Yes.
I did have to ask. Okay. Barbara, I'm wondering, would you be willing to come into my office for a few minutes? There's something I want to discuss.
Sure.
Great. So she comes into my office. Barbara, I imagine there's a lot of time here when you don't have something that has an urgent deadline. And you probably feel that because there's not an urgent deadline, that you would have enough time to be able to check in with your family or play solitaire or do a number of things because
Solitaire?
I believe that I've seen you on the
Yes.
computer having some fun and some downtimes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so I know that you do have a family. You're very close to your family. And I know that you're somebody who likes to work when there's some urgent things that need to be done and some deadlines. And that's why you've been with me all these years,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah. And I wonder, because it's very troubling to me when I've got you in this very important position, you've been with me a long time, and I count on you the way I do, it's very troubling to me when I see you on the phone making personal calls and on the computer. And I'm wondering if there's some way that we could find for you to take a couple of breaks during the day, and of course you have your regular breaks during the day and a lunch time, and if you could just limit those extracurriculars to the breaks, I would be grateful. Do you think we could figure something out?
I think we could.
Do you want to think about it and come talk to me tomorrow? Would that be good, or you want to just suggest something now?
Well, you know, I really don't do computers. It's technical stuff. I've got my job. I've learned it, and I do it, and I can't do that other stuff.
Okay, so if you could have your personal calls during your lunch hour, would you be willing to do that? I would really appreciate it, and then you get a break in the morning and a break in the afternoon. Could we do that?
Didn't think about that. A break, sure, to make calls.
Well, you have to go to the restroom
Okay,
anyway,
yeah.
and so
Okay.
it just seems to me take a few more minutes instead of doing it throughout the day. So we just set aside time. You know, you have a life, obviously.
Sure.
There are people you
Sure.
have to check in with and make
Sure.
plans. Yeah, that'd be okay.
That would be fine.
Great. So then you're going to take like a mid-morning break for 5-10 minutes. You'll have your lunch. You'll take a mid-afternoon break, 5 or 10 minutes. Would that work for you, Barbara?
That'd be fine.
Oh, I'd
That'd be
really
fine.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Now we have to check in with you after you talk to this woman.
Well, I've talked to her already.
Oh, and?
And basically, everything that we do is a matter of attitude.
Yes, of
And,
course.
and I determined that if I shifted my attitude, that she would have to shift hers. Okay? And so I shifted my attitude, and hers shifted in relationship to mine.
And I didn't pay him to come. Thank you.
Yes.
Has this gentleman had brain training?
This gentleman has had some.
Of course he's had brain training. Okay, so I think we have like 5 minutes, and I don't know if there's any question that anybody else has, and if not, I will just wind it up before I introduce Brandy. So any last question from me? Of course, you know I give a 1-hour free telephone session, so you're welcome to call me or email me and all the handouts and all that. So this is not your last opportunity to, speak to me. So I am now going to introduce to you one of my favorite people on the planet Earth. And it is a very small group, let me tell you. Brandy Bennett is an expert in organizational
Psychology.
psychology. You know, I had planned on sitting down and reviewing this brand new intro, so I really regret. What is most exciting about Brandy is the work that she and Dr. Ian Mussman do with alpha-gamma brain training, as I told you before. It is extraordinary. They have developed something that is literally brand new. There are people who have done something with biofeedback, etc., or something where you supposedly are ending up with a completely transformed brain. I can tell you that has not been my experience. The very first time that I learned what Brandy and Ian are doing and experienced it, I found that the way I thought shifted, the way that I viewed life shifted, the way that I addressed my own personal challenges and my work and all the people in my life shifted, and it has not gone back. It is not like that miracle diet where you lose 20 pounds and then you're yo-yoing forever. This is a transformation. This is a legitimate transformation. And it is not only, I didn't need the spiritual part of it, but I've seen people that I've sent who have had a spiritual shift. I didn't need the emotional part of it because I already worked for like 400,000 years doing all this as I described. For me, it was, and I'm a very hard worker, for me, it's the upper left brain. That was the part of my brain that had always been a challenge for me. So when Yogi Mind shifted then into alpha gamma, and now they're brain training and balancing the brain, I found that without even realizing it, I left the office and I had a different brain. So balanced brain, of course, is the only way to go. You can't take a chance and not have full functioning in any of these quadrants, right? You've heard me describe, what they're about. You don't want to walk out of here thinking, I'll be fine without whatever it is. That's a frightening idea, and let me tell you, not having enough upper left brain for all the years that I didn't was very, very scary. I've worked with 2 different people who had had actual traumatic car accidents, and they didn't know about what Brandy and Ian do, so they had to try to find a way to live without, in one person's case, this brain, the other person's case, this brain. So the woman who didn't have the emotional brain was able to have a car accident and give up the guy she was having an affair with. So her husband was thrilled. But that's a horrible way to give up having an extramarital affair, by having part of her brain disappear. Imagine. The other woman had been in a horrible car accident, and I worked with her too after it, and she had lost the safety brain. She was a woman in her 50s living in a sleeping bag, going to rock concerts with no roof over her head in the middle of the winter in Northern California. She was stoned all the time. She was hanging out with people she liked and listening to music. And it was gone. And I was able to train her without having this tremendous gift. It took months and months and months and months of work so that she was able to manually attend to some of this, but only some.